Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Good morning. We will discuss the remaining part of the combustion in SI engines. So, we were discussing the engine variables which affect the engine delay, ignition delay. So, particularly in case of spark ignition engines, we have seen that higher is the self ignition temperature of the fuel, longer will be the ignition delay. Okay, and longer ignition delay, particularly in case of SI engine, is what is more desirable. You want to have as long ignition delay as possible, because that way you can avoid the knocking issues. Okay. Ignition delay is the smallest for the mixture ratios, which gives the maximum temperature. Electrode gap also affects the ignition delay. If the gap is too small, quenching of the flame nucleus may occur, but if it is too large, then the intensity of the flame nucleus will be reduced. Okay, and lower compression ratio requires higher electrode gap. So, if you look at this figure, which tells you relationship between electrode gap on the x-axis and equivalence ratio of the fuel air mixture on the y-axis, this is electrode gap varying from about 0.25 millimeter to about 1 millimeter, and equivalence ratio, more than 1 really means richer mixture, and less than 1 means leaner mixture. And these are the different compression ratios. You can see for higher compression ratio, this is the electrode gap. So if you have 0.75 millimeter electrode gap, you will be able to burn leaner mixtures with the equivalence ratio of 0.85 all the way to 1.7. Anything in between you will be able to burn. But if you have lower compression ratio, this value will fall. That means with a lower compression ratio, the equivalence ratio that you can burn will be smaller. Okay? So this gives us the relationship between equivalence ratio and electrode gap. Okay? Similarly, the initial temperature and pressure conditions of the engine also affects the ignition delay or ignition lag. So if you increase the initial temperature, pressure, compression ratio, and retard the spark, this is going to reduce the ignition delay. And the reason of reduction in ignition delay is that when you increase the pressure, temperature, the chemical kinetics of the reactions actually increases. Compression ratio has the same effect. Retarding the spark plug also has the same effect, because you are applying the spark closer to the top dead center, and then you have the same effect. And all these factors therefore reduce the ignition delay. What is the effect of turbulence? Excessive turbulence of the mixture in the area of spark plug is harmful, because if there is excess turbulence, the flame front, which has just started because of the plasma formation between the electrodes, it may not get converted into full-fledged flames. It may get extinguished. So it can be very harmful. Okay. So you can see spark and flame propagation. So in this case, you see the spark is discharged about 30 degree before top dead center. And what you see here is actually the image sequence of the combustion chamber, how the flames are propagating, and this is the situation here. This is the cylinder head. Here you have the exhaust valve and the intake valve, and here is the spark plug. Okay? So you can see this is not in the center really of the combustion chamber. So this is the time when you apply the spark, and if you look at it up to about minus 18 degree or so, minus 20, 25 degree, that's when you see the first flame. In the pictures, the visible thing comes here. Very small visible flame is seen in these pictures. Of course, the quality of the picture has reduced. If you want to look at the original picture, there is a view graph in the book by Haywood. You can see this is more clear there. So you see the flames are this is off center. So close to the spark plug is when you see where you see the flames growing, okay, and they are growing, and by this position about 10 degree, 10 to 12 degree, that's when the entire combustion chamber will be filled with flames. And then about 20-25 degree they start dying out, and by 30 degree it will be almost over. So spark discharges at minus 30, that means 30 degree before top dead center. Flames are first visible in minus 24, 20 degree before top dead center. Blue light is emitted more strongly from the flame front. Okay, at top dead center, at this position, almost 2/3 of the diameter of the cylinder bore is actually filled with flames. Flame reaches the farthest cylinder wall at about 15 degree. So at about 15 degree, these are the times when you see the entire combustion chamber being engulfed. But the combustion continues for another 10 degree, 25 degree or so. And then you see these flames are dying. So the afterglow comes from the gases behind the flames, as these are compressed to the highest temperature attained in the cylinder, while the rest of the charge burns. Okay. So this is how the flame propagation inside the engine combustion chamber takes place. You have to also understand it from a different perspective. See, in a combustion chamber, the flames have started, and flames is nothing but a reactive zone. Okay, heat is being released, so the flames actually separate the burnt charge from the unburnt charge. The burnt charge is at a much higher temperature, and the unburnt charge is at a relatively lower temperature. So what will happen? This burnt charge will try to expand, and it will compress the unburnt charge. So the unburnt charge will be pushed further, and it will be further compressed. Okay. So the density of the charge actually ahead of the flame front is at times 4 times higher than what is behind the flame front. Why? Because behind the flame front it is all hot and burnt charge. So it will have more expanded form. It will be under higher pressure, but the density will be low because the temperature is high. But ahead of the flame front, it's relatively cooler charge. So its density is much higher because it is compressed by the flame front itself. It could be 4 times higher. So as a result, you can imagine that the temperature of the charge ahead of the flame front will also increase, and there is a chemical reaction going on. Okay. So if it reaches a temperature above the auto ignition temperature, then what will happen? And ignition delay period is over, then the charge which is ahead of the flame front will explode, right? And once that explodes, that's called knocking. What is knocking? So there is an explosion of a small amount of charge which has obtained auto ignition conditions, and ignition delay period is over. And there is a normal pressure wave which is traveling from the spark plug. There is a very intense explosion, so there is a very sharp pressurized wave that is traveling, and both are going to collide. And once both of these pressure waves moving in opposite directions, once they collide, it leads to vibrations. There will be pressure imbalances in the cylinder. As a result, the loose part, which is the piston, it will start vibrating. It will start hitting the cylinder wall. And that's why you see whenever knocking takes place in an engine, you experience metal to metal contact, pinging noise as if metal is hitting against the metal. That's because your piston is hitting against the cylinder walls. Okay. If we look at some of the salient features of the SI engine combustion process, we will discuss the abnormal combustion later in the course, but it's just a brief introduction I thought I must give you to the knocking processes. So if you look at the combustion process in a spark ignition engine, you can see this is the motoring diagram. Okay. And obviously it will be symmetric across the top dead center because you are just compressing and expanding, nothing is happening here. Now what happens, you apply the spark at 25 degree before top dead center. Okay. So once you apply the spark, up to some period it will look like nothing is happening. Okay. That's called ignition delay period. And then you will see that the pressure curve and the motoring curve, they start separating. So when the point at which they start separating, that is called start of combustion. Okay. And suppose you acquire the P theta diagram, pressure crank angle diagram, y axis is pressure, x-axis is theta. If you acquire the diagram, you will see that for 5 cycles, there are 5 different curves. And you will wonder why the engine is not behaving in a uniform manner, why this behavior of pressure crank angle is varying from cycle to cycle. So, the answer to that question is that in every engine cycle, the composition of the intake charge is different. Why it is different? Because in every cycle you have intake valve, exhaust valve closing. So, when the exhaust valve opens and closes, every time there is a different quantity, slightly different quantity of exhaust gas left in the cylinder. Since there is exhaust gas quantity is changing, obviously it will affect the intake air mixture coming in also. So, the mixture strength all the time is varying, and this leads to this kind of a behavior. Now, question is, if this is cycle number 1, this is cycle number 2, this is cycle number 3, 4 and 5. When I do the analysis, which one should be considered? Which data should I consider? So, the answer to that question is, you can't really go for taking one cycle to be correct cycle. What you have to do is, you have to actually choose a number of cycles, somewhere between 200 to 1000 cycles, and then average them out. And once you average them out, then this effect of cyclic variability will be gone. And then you can compare different fuels, different, whatever experiment you have planned, you can compare. So, pressure reaches here, what the point to be noted is that this is the TDC, the pressure reaches TDC maximum after TDC. So, pressure reaches the maximum after TDC, but before this cylinder charge is fully burnt. So, cylinder charge will be fully burned here, somewhere here. The pressure continues to decrease, see, after reaching a peak it is reducing. Combustion is still continuing, but the pressure has started reducing. Why that happens? Because now you see your piston has started moving down. So, although the heat release is taking place, but the volume is also expanding. As a result, the pressure will fall. So, the pressure continues to decrease as the cylinder volume continues to increase during the remainder of the expansion stroke, and this cylinder pressure is for 5 consecutive cycles in SI engine as a function of crank angle, where you have the ignition timing 30 degree before top dead center, wide open throttle, that means full load condition, and this is the RPM 1044, and equivalence ratio is 0.98, that means it is almost a stoichiometric mixture. Okay. Now, you see, I convert this to volume fraction burnt and mass fraction burnt. This data, I can apply the first law of thermodynamics, I can do some data processing, and so on the x-axis there is volume, there is crank angle degree, on the y-axis there is volume fraction burnt, XB, and here is mass fraction burnt on the, I think, sorry, I made a mistake. This is volume fraction burnt and this is the mass fraction burnt. These captions are exchange actually. So, this is actually mass fraction burnt XP and this is the volume fraction burnt. Okay, these should have been reversed. So, mass fraction burnt and volume fraction enflamed for 5 consecutive cycles of SI engine as a function of crank angle, again same conditions. So, this is the mass fraction burnt and this is the volume fraction burnt. What is the difference that you see here? The difference, first of all, you see here, you can never consume the entire volume, you can also not consume the entire mass, okay, because there will always be some mass which will be entering the Kreyweis volumes. But what is a distinctive feature is this. Do you see any difference in the slope? Yes. So, this slope is high slope, this slope is low slope. What does it mean? It means that the volume fraction enflamed curve rises more steeply than mass fraction burnt, because the density of the unburnt charge ahead of the flame is about 4 times the density of the charge behind the flames. Okay. So, it will look as if you have consumed the entire volume, but a significant amount of mass ahead of the flame front because of higher density will remain unburnt. That is why this slope is high, this slope is low. Some unburnt mixture still to burn behind the visible front of the flame, even when the entire combustion chamber is fully enflamed. So, whenever you see that the entire thing is under, we have seen in this image that at 15 degree, entire combustion chamber looks to be enflamed, but still combustion reactions are going on. About 25% of the fuel mass is still not burnt at this stage. Okay? So, this is something that one needs to keep in mind. Now, you see, you can say that, okay, I want to run an engine, I want to draw maximum power out of it, but one thing that dictates the maximum power output is spark timing. What spark timing should I choose, and what is the effect of spark timing on the combustion process? How do I determine it? So, to do that, what you do is you actually ignite the mixture at different spark timings. For example, just for a case, 3 spark timings are chosen here. One is 10 degree after top dead center, the other one is 30 degree after top dead center, and the other one is 50 degree after top dead center. So, obviously, when you apply at 50, the pressure rise will be almost at TDC or maybe possibly before TDC, because you have applied much ahead. 30 degree, you have some pressure rise after top dead center, say around 20 degree. When you apply at 10 degree, combustion will start quite late. So, TDC actually passes without seeing the combustion, and then suddenly there will be pressure rise, but then this pressure rise will take place when you have already expanded a little bit. So, the peak will not be very great. Okay. So, these are the 3 spark timing, everything else remains same, air fuel mixture, everything else same. Do you think that the power output in these 3 situations will be same? Yes or no? No, because the pressure being exerted is very different. So, this will lead to a different torque generation, this will lead to a different torque generation, and this will lead to a different torque generation. Question is, which one would you like to have, this one or this one? So, the answer to that question is, you will do the experiment, you will find out what is the torque being generated, pick up the maximum torque, divide everything, and then put this relative torque here, okay, and put the crank angle degree here. So, at 10 degree you will be very, very low, okay. You go to 30, you will see the maximum torque. Of course, you need not do it at the steps of 20, you can do it at a step of 1 degree or 2 degree. But when you do that, you will get some experimental point and you will get this kind of a curve, okay. This point is when you get the maximum torque being generated. If you advance or retard the spark timing from this position, in both cases your torque output will reduce, and this timing is called maximum brake torque timing or MBT timing. This is basically a spark timing, and that is how you determine the maximum brake torque being generated by an engine. Please note that this is not a sharp point, this is a plateau. So, that means if you go a couple of degrees this side or couple of degrees that side, it will not really make much of a difference, okay, and that gives you some leeway as to how to optimize more emissions, and you may have another fuel consumption can be another parameter, so you can optimize that also. So, if the start of the combustion process is progressively advanced before TDC, the compression stroke work transfer increases. If at the end of the combustion process is progressively delayed by retarding the spark timing, the peak cylinder pressure occurs later in the expansion stroke and it is reduced in the magnitude. So, you can see in both sides it is reducing. These changes reduce the expansion stroke work transfer from the cylinder gases to the piston, and the optimum timing which gives the maximum brake torque timing is called MBT or timing or maximum brake torque timing. Okay. I hope this is clear how we determine maximum brake torque output from a engine, especially in case of SI engine. If you have any other timing, you will be consuming the same amount of fuel, but your power output will reduce by 5%, 10% depending on how much unoptimized condition you are operating at. Okay. So, if you look at the optimum spark timing, it will depend on the following. First is the rate of flame development and propagation. Okay. So, obviously, if the rate of flame propagation is fast, your MBT timing will be close to the TDC. If it is slow, then you will give more time for flames to evolve. Okay. So, flame development and propagation time affects the spark timing. And then the length of flame travel path across the combustion chamber. I think I'll give you one example. If this is your engine cylinder, you have one spark plug. What is the maximum distance of flame travel? This one, right? If you want to make it faster, the simplest thing to do will be that instead of one spark plug, you have now two spark plugs. So the maximum distance of flame travel now reduces. Compared to this will be this one. Okay, so that's why many engines use twin spark plugs. Why? Because they want to reduce the maximum distance of flame travel. Particularly, you must have seen all the Royal Enfield engines have DTSI technology. Okay. Then the flame termination process after it reaches the wall also affects the spark timing settings. There are empirical rules for relating the mass burn profile with the maximum cylinder to crank angle at MBT. For example, optimum spark timing, there are some thumb rules. These are empirical rules. You can't prove them by any theory. This is just based on experience and some data fitting with the experiments. That's why they are called empirical rules. So if you have an optimum spark timing, there is no scientific logic for it, but there is no violation of these rules as well. Maximum pressure should occur 16 degree after top dead center. That means maximum pressure, this P max, should, if it is at 16 degree after top dead center, then this will be optimum spark timing. Then the second part is that half of the charge is burnt about 10 degree after top dead center. Half of the charge means you are talking of really XB, this one. Half of the charge 10 degree after top dead center. That means this is your MBT. So these are the two empirical relationships which are generally used in IC engine technology in industry. Okay. There is no real scientific basis for it. At least it has not been realized by mathematical equations. This is only by data fitting that these results have been generally seen to agree with the experiments. Now you see, if you want to analyze the combustion in a SI engine, the best way to analyze the combustion in a SI engine is to look at combustion crank angle history, pressure crank angle history. You call as P theta diagram or PV diagram. Okay. You can convert both of them interchangeably very easily. So we have seen when we were analyzing the ideal cycles, ideal Otto cycles, and also the actual cycles, we have seen that PV diagram for a SI engine will be like this. This is the positive loop and this is the negative loop. Okay. So this is the PV diagram that you get from a SI engine. When you convert, this is on a linear scale, you can see 0, 1000, 2000, 3000 kilopascals. When you make it a log scale, same unit pressure, but on a log scale. Fraction of the maximum volume, again on a log scale. You will see that this is the positive loop, okay, and this is the negative loop. The way to ensure that your data is correct is a very simple thing. These two lines will be straight lines and they should be almost parallel to each other. Once you get this, that means all your data acquisition system is working correctly, and this is the data is you can trust. Data is trustworthy. Okay? So this is one way to get the data. Now what you do once you get the pressure crank angle diagram, you have to analyze it, and the only way you can analyze it by using idealization. So you basically apply the first law of thermodynamics, okay, and you would like to take effect of as many factors as you can in the given conditions. For example, you can take the effect of heat transfer, crevices and leakage. These can be explicitly incorporated into pressure data using heat release approach based on the first law of thermodynamics. I will not go into detail of this first law analysis. I will just give you a brief introduction and I will really rush through because this is a first level course. If you want to understand the details of it, you have to take advanced course. Okay. But I will just give you brief of how it is done. Say for example, you take this as an engine cylinder. This is the open boundary system. What is coming in? H injection. Fuel is coming in. How much? DMF. And H injection is basically the enthalpy of the fuel. What is going out? Heat transfer. Here there is a work transfer because it is pushing the boundary. So, work transfer is taking place and in the crevice some mass is entering. So, all these things you can actually take into account. So, delta Q charge is the heat released by the combustion of fuel. Okay. This will be equal to delta US, which is the change in the internal energy of the system contents, plus delta Q HT plus delta W plus delta HMI DMI, how much mass is entering, how much fuel is coming in. Okay. So, change in the sensor energy of the charge dUs is separated from that due to change in the composition. So, you are not really worrying about the composition right now. Delta QCH represents the chemical energy released by the combustion. Work done by the piston because of the volume change is PdV work that you take into account, and delta QHT is the heat transfer to the cylinder walls. Okay. So, basically then you calculate the change in the internal energy, then you calculate how much is the heat that is generated by combustion, and then you look at what is the mass going into the crevice or going out of the crevice. So, you take the sign accordingly and then finally you get this equation. Okay. This equation you can use in several ways, details of which I can discuss in the next class, in the next course actually. Heat transfer is also estimated using this formula. dQHT upon dt is AHC upon T minus TW. T is the mean gas temperature, TW is the wall temperature, and HC is the heat transfer coefficient, and then you take that into account. So, once you do that, you see this is something interesting that comes out. Here is the heat, okay, that is given here. Here you have the crank angle degree. So, you see when you are compressing the charge, there is no heat release. Once the combustion starts, the heat release takes place. It should go all the way here. This is MFQLHV, that means this is the mass of the fuel into lower heating value. Why there is a dip? There is a dip because some of the mass has actually entered the crevice volumes, that will not burn. So, that is why there is a dip. So, when this thing goes up, it should actually theoretically go all the way up to this value, but it does not. Why it does not? Because the combustion is never 100% complete. You are not converting all the hydrocarbons into carbon dioxide and water, it gets converted to carbon monoxide, there is a inefficiency. Okay. So, the heat QCH is actually this. Then there is some amount of charge that is entering into the combustion chamber. So, that goes by this dotted line, and then there is a lot of heat that goes through the cylinder wall. So, this is the heat transfer. So, you see where you should have this much heat being released, finally you actually have this much heat released, okay, because you have taken into account the effect of heat transfer, effect of crevice volumes, and effect of combustion inefficiency. Okay. So, the lowest heat release is the net heat release. This is the net fuel energy, this is the net heat release. Addition of the heat transfer and crevice models give chemical energy release, and curve on the top is the mass of the fuel in the combustion chamber times its lower heating value. The difference of these two values is equal to the combustion inefficiency. So, this is the entire combustion inefficiency. Combustion process characterization, if you look at the combustion process characterization, here is the percentage heat release, okay, in 100%, and here this is the crank angle. So, once the combustion starts at say at 0, okay, this is in crank angle degree. So, suppose you are starting at some crank angle degree that you consider as 0. So, for when the combustion starts, we have seen that initially the nucleus is very, very small and the flames grow rather slowly. So that means it will take enormous amount of time for 10% mass to burn. Okay. So you can see that the percentage of fuel consumed will be very, very small compared to the time taken. So this 10% fuel, whenever the 10% fuel is consumed, that is called theta 10%. This is called flame development angle. Okay. And once you have a reasonable momentum, then the combustion is real quick. It consumes the entire combustion very, very quickly until there are very small pockets left. So this is very quick, and then again towards the end the combustion becomes very slow, because you are dealing with areas very close to the cylinder walls, areas very close to the crevice volumes. That is where the flames will be very, very slow. So this last part is also very slow. So the 10% mass, you see here, this is 100%, this is 20, this is 10, this is the delta theta d. So this is called theta 10%, and this is the 90% mass, so this is called theta 90%. So the crank angle which it takes to consume 10% of the mass, that is called flame development angle, delta theta d. So the definition of flame development angle is the crank angles taken by combustion in a SI engine to consume 10% of the fuel air mixture mass. Clear? And 90%, again the same thing, we will replace 10% by 90%. So the crank angle interval between the spark discharge and the time when a small but significant fraction, in this case 10% of the cylinder mass has been burnt or fuel chemical energy has been released. This is sometimes referred as start of combustion also, SOC. Okay. And there are, in literature you will find that this flame development angle has been also sometimes some people define it as 5%. It is not necessary that you define it as 10%. Some people define it 5%, some people even define, very few, but some people even define 2%. So you have to basically, what you can take any definition, all are existing in the literature, but you have to then specify in your article that okay, this is what is the definition that I have taken. Usually this percent is 10%, though other fractions such as 1, 2 and 5 have also been used. Okay. Then you see this is delta theta b. Delta theta b is what? It is the crank angle interval required to burn bulk of the charge. Interval between the end of the flame development stage and the end of the flame propagation process. Usually the mass fraction burnt or energy release fraction is 90%. Again in this case some people take 95% as rapid burning angle also. The difference between delta theta d and delta theta d, actually delta theta b is combustion duration. Overall burning angle is basically the sum of these two. Okay. So overall burning duration is defined as delta theta d plus delta theta b. Okay. So flame structure and speed, critical parameters necessary for engine optimization are engine combustion flame as it develops from the spark discharge. Second parameter for the engine optimization is flame speed, at which it propagates through the combustion chamber, and the charge motion. Then charge composition is also extremely important, because if there is, whether there is more fraction of residual gases from the previous cycle or less, it is going to affect the flame speed and therefore the heat release. Then the combustion chamber geometry also affects. Why the combustion chamber geometry affects? Say for example, if you have a combustion chamber like this, okay, hemispherical, and you have the spark here, is it going to affect? Yes, it is going to affect, because now the heat transfer area will be much higher compared to this. Okay. So the flame, sometimes if you look at some of the classical books, the heat transfer, the cylinder head design used to be like this, and here there is a valve. Okay. This is called L head design. There are T head engines also. T head engines are like this. Of course, you do not see these engines nowadays because they have problems and they have failed, but they were developed, they were commercialized also at some point in time. So the combustion chamber geometry also affects the flame structure and the flame speed. Because flame structure and flame speed at the end of the day fundamentally, it is affected by the composition and also affected by the heat losses, also affected by the turbulence. So any factor which affects these 3 or 4 fundamental factors is going to affect the flame speed as well. Some experimental observations, I will show you. For example, here there is crank angle from the ignition. Okay, so these are all observations at 10 degree, these are 15 degree, 20, 25, of course after the top dead center. And you see here in this case, it is a spark plug which is in the wall and there is no swell. So you see the flame has started, it is starting to grow, it's like this. Okay. Then the same cylinder but with normal swirl. Swirl means motion of the air. So here you see when you apply the spark you see some swirl, and because of this swirl you see faster propagation, same combustion chamber, everything same, but you have faster propagation of flames. Then high swirl, you see here high swirl, it is spark plug is here, because of the high swirl this is where the flames are, this is the region where there is fuel air mixture unburnt. Okay. Again this is the central electrode. So here there is a wall electrode, here there is a central electrode, that means spark plug electrode is in the center. So when there is no swirl, you see this is how the flame propagation is taking place. Here it is not able to consume the entire thing because the distance of maximum travel is quite a bit. Here it is able to consume everything because the maximum distance of flame travel is small. See here twin sparks, no swirl. So one flame has started here, another one has started here, and here they are almost merging and 25 degree everything is burnt. Yes.
Is twin spark equal to a detonation condition?
No.
Because there are two flames.
No, but they are same intensity. And you basically align it in such a way that they are not head on collision, they are like going sidewise. Okay. So in detonation conditions, one is a large wave front, a lot of heat has released. One is a small energy but it is released suddenly. So the pressure rise in the small packet is about 25 times higher than the main pressure rise rate. Okay. So here you see from this observation approximately spherical development of the flame in the vicinity of the spark plug. Geometry of the combustion chamber and spark plug govern the flame front area. Larger the surface area, greater the mass of the fresh charge that cross the surface and enters the flame zone. The center plug location gives twice the flame area of the side flame geometry and burn about twice as fast. Mixture burning rate is highly influenced by the engine speed. So you can see why does the swirl increases? Swirl also increases with increasing engine speed. So mixture burning rate is also going to be faster if you have faster engine speed. Just to give you some fundamentals, there are many designs of the spark plug. This is the basic construction of the spark plug. There is one central electrode which is connected here, and then this is the earthing, this is connected to the body of the engine. In between these two you have the spark discharge. There are many designs, you can see there are many designs and many gaps here. This is the basic structure, I'll explain this to you in the next slide. So ignition system has a transformer, has to transform the battery voltage of 12 volt to 8 to 20 kilovolt. So basically you need a step up transformer because on board you have only a 12 volt or sometimes even 6 volt battery, and in order to generate a spark you have to have very high voltage, which could be 8 to 35 kilovolt in big engines. Okay. So and then this spark has to be delivered in the right cylinder at the right time. Okay, if you don't deliver in the right cylinder at right time, then it is going to be a problem. We have seen that in crank angles, it should be precise to the microsecond regime. Only then you will be able to give it at right time. We have seen that MBT timing, if you are off by 5 degree or 7 degree, your performance of the engine will go down. How much energy should we give in each spark? 0.2 millijoule of energy is required to ignite the stoichiometric mixture of a normal operating engine, only 0.2 millijoule. Over 3 millijoule is required for rich or lean mixture. If it is rich or lean, you need to give much higher energy. So therefore, just to be sure that under all conditions you are able to ignite, you deliver about 30 to 50 millijoule of energy. It is still very small amount. Okay. So the fundamental requirement of the ignition source is a high ignition voltage to break down in the spark plug. What breaks down? The air or air fuel mixture, that should break down to what? Ionized gas or plasma. Okay. A low source impedance or steep voltage rise. You don't want slow voltage rise, you want absolutely steep. So you need some kind of a high capacity capacitor to discharge quickly and give you the steep voltage rise. A high energy capacity to create a spark kernel of sufficient size and sufficient duration of the voltage to ensure that you are able to ignite successfully. Well, this is just one comparison. I thought I will just put, we are trying to use lasers. So we put the laser through this and you are able to generate plasma. Okay. And this is the electrical spark plug which is used in the cars. So I told you that here you are able to generate about 10,000 degree Kelvin temperature and about 100 bar pressure shock wave in between here. At this point, using laser, see, we have seen that here you have to deliver 30 to 50 millijoule. With laser, we have been successful in ignition with 8 millijoule of energy, and here we are able to create temperature of 1 million Kelvin, 100 times higher than this, and pressure about 10,000 bar, 100 times more than this. Okay. So this is actually much more intense. I don't want to go into detail, but it's just a very good development, and hopefully in future you will be running some of the laser ignited cars. Okay. So you have the battery, and here you have the contact switch, which is basically the key of your car or bike, and this is going to a transformer coil. Here you have a capacitor which actually charges and then discharges very quickly, and here you have the contact breaker. Contact breaker is used normally in case of multi-cylinder engine, because you have to make sure that you are, so contact breaker is basically, this is distributor to make sure that you are giving the charge to right cylinder at right time. Contact breaker is basically the time when you have to apply the all this voltage to this coil. So whenever the contact is established, this discharges, the electric current is coming from here and high voltage pulse is generated. This high voltage pulse through this distributor goes to the right cylinder, and that is where the spark is generated. Okay. So this is just a basic overview of the spark ignition system. So with this we come to the end of combustion in SI engines.